There's just so much about Thuy Trang that there's so much that is just so special. There's so much information out there about Thuy having left Vietnam, left the war. She came over on a boat, had to learn the language, and she had to integrate and be a part of who we are. And that part is well known. But what isn't well known is her general love for people, her compassion for just life. She was a civil engineer. She was a brilliant person, a brilliant mind, and she was still one of the most fun people I ever spent time with. I think Walter would agree with me, and the whole cast would agree. But Walter and I, we left the show with her. We stood our grounds when it came time to leave the show. We chose to acknowledge the fact that Haim Saban was paying us absolutely crap while making billions, and that wasn't right. And we were all young, none of us had money, none of us had the right attorneys, none of us had the right management, none of us had anything with which to fight, but we did it anyway. And the amount of courage that took when I came to the whole team, half the team quit and stayed with the show. She was one of the other two, her and Walter, that stuck with me and believed and found the inner strength to stand up to a billionaire. The amount of respect and love and compassion that I will always have for her is beyond measure. One of the things that I think has been missed in the grand scale of Thuy and her courage and her leadership and her fearlessness is that, you know, we hear about Susan B. Anthony. We hear about all these fearless women who led the charge and brought strength or courage or value to countless other women. In the long run, many times after they've passed on, we see the benefits and the effects and the ripple that goes on through time, like throwing a pebble into a pond and watching the ripples move out. The ripples still continue across the surface. Thuy was a boulder in that pond, but she doesn't get the credit that she deserves, like many other women leaders in the industry. Thuy was one of the early, very young, nowhere near experienced as other women in the industry who stood up for what she believed. She stood up for a lack of pay. And it's the courage, it's the fortitude that it takes to stand up and really truly stand against a giant. To be a gladiator in the arena, which is what she was with Walter and I, but she was still the only woman with everybody watching. With Haim Saban, she got to step aside and understand that what was going on was wrong. She had the courage with which to stand hard. Women like that in any industry. I mean, we hear about it far more now because things have changed. And we hear about it more in the 90s than we did in the 80s and the 70s and since Susan B. Anthony's era. So I'm not saying she is the first, because she is not. But she is one of the few who not only recognized the damage, recognized the disservice, recognized the disrespect, but did something about it. Now, if you're watching this, ask yourself, man or woman, when was the last time you did that? And I guess that's why I kind of came back to this whole thing. I saw the first video and I love the first video, but there was so much it left out, and I will probably be back to make a third and a fourth video as I think about other things that I didn't say, and it's just never ending because there's so much to say about a woman in the 90s that had that courage. And that's why I came back and I wanted to re-edit the video and add other things that I felt were just missed in my first try. You ever meet someone that is just so incredibly endearing. You don't even know them. You just meet them, and you just want to give them that big warm hug. I'm an introvert. I'm not like that. Thuy was one of those people that I wanted to do that with, and that's a rare thing for me because she is just such a genuine soul. I had so many special times with her, and I know Walter, well, I know the entire cast would feel that way, but Walter and I had an additional level of experiences with her once we all had the courage to stand up and leave the show together. I miss her, and I think about what she went through with her family, what her family went through to get to the country, the suffering that, as a little child, she must have experienced, and the fact that she never let any of that keep her from growing into this megalithic persona in front of 400 million fans in 40 countries and 90 languages around the world. She never let that stop her from influencing with positivity people to this day who give her the greatest gratitude for positive and exceptional changes that they made because she influenced them. I'm blessed to have ever met her. I'm blessed to have ever known her. That is this much of how I could describe someone so incredibly special, and even begin to wrap my mind around 1/10 of what it is to understand that she's lost to the world. I would love to visit her grave or to tell her family just what an incredible person I was with on set while she was showing her soul and value to the world on. Just know that Thuy, who played Trini, is one of the very most special people I have ever worked with, ever, in any job around the world, and I've had many. Just know that I miss her desperately. So, until I'm back for the next one, watch this.
So full of life, and I'm just gonna miss her a lot.
The 27-year-old actress died in a car accident near San Francisco during the Labor Day weekend. One former Power Ranger says Thuy's own life is the stuff movies are made of.
She came over as a refugee from Vietnam, escaping from the Vietnam War. Her family came over on a boat. Just things that we couldn't even fathom, and then they had to come here and learn a whole new language and just integrate themselves into America.
And after graduating with a degree as a civil engineer, Thuy followed her own American dream to become an actress, an inspirational story that ended too soon.
So my name is Austin St. John. You would know me as Jason, the original Red Ranger from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. One of the things I wanted to talk about is something that isn't talked about enough in my mind. It's an amazing co-star that we had. Her name was Thuy Trang. She played Trini, the Yellow Ranger. I'm not gonna talk about her death too much because I wanna stay on the positive side. So many incredible things that are just too wonderful not to discuss, rather than the fact that she was killed in a car accident. The stuff you don't know. You know, she was beautiful. She had the silky long hair, typical to people of Asian descent. Just beautiful, and not just on the outside, but on the inside. She truly had this very caring spirit. That is not to say that she wasn't a little bit mischievous and at times devious, known to participate in pranks and never get caught because she naturally looked so innocent. She would get these grins on her face, and this was the only way I learned how to tell she'd been involved in something, like a practical joke. Everybody's being accused of something, and she would just sit there and she would just have this little grin on her face, and her eyes would twinkle, and I was like, it was her. She did it. She never got caught. But I knew, just so you know, that I know. She knows that I know. And now we all know that I knew back then what I'm telling everybody now that they didn't know then, so that we're all aware of it now. I did come very close to honoring her on several occasions which I'm sure still gives her an immense giggle to this day. Women have an amazing dexterity that most men do not enjoy. You can do things with your arms that we are not naturally meant to do. You ever watch a gal? She's like one hand, reach back, no problem. I can barely reach my rear belt buckle, you know? I'm like, pulled something in my shoulder, right? Now we're in these spandex suits and the zipper comes up to the back of the neck. Well, that's fine, I can reach it right here. But it's got to go all the way down to here. On several occasions, I almost became the Yellow Ranger. Before you put on the superhero outfit, make sure you go pee-pee, okay? It's like a conversation you should have with your son. I had to have that with myself. I can remember going up to Thuy, gotta pee, can you get my zipper? Not a conversation every guy has with anyone. Guys, when was the last time you're like, would you unzip me? Maybe some guys, all right. She would mess with me because she'd be like, oh, it's stuck, I can't. And then she'd call wardrobe over, and wardrobe, they would get in on the joke. Oh yeah, it's so totally stuck. I'm doing the pee-pee dance, woo, Lamaze. Not a good situation. I'm done with you guys, and then I go over to Walter, and I'd be like, Walt, can you get my zipper? No, man, I ain't touching your zipper. It's not like that. Would you just undo my zipper? He's like, nah, man. Everybody, they took a little pleasure in the young guy, because I was the baby on set. They liked to torture me a little bit, and it was all in good fun. So Thuy had a mischievous side that not a lot of people are aware of. Those are just some of the favorite things, some of my favorite moments with Thuy. We were definitely like a brother-sister. And I know there are a lot of people like, oh, you know, she should have been Jason and Trini together instead of Jason and Kimberly. I was like, well, Jimberly never happened. I don't know if what is it, Trayson, I think I'm called, Trayson, the whole Jason Trini thing. That would have been my vote. I would have much rather that than Jimberly. Anyway, so that's just a little bit from me, for you, about Thuy, and how much I know we all miss her.